Okay, call the meeting to order. This time, you please stand for the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Texas Pledge.
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, we pray for your provision this evening in our proceedings. I pray that you allow us to make all of our decisions with hearts not only on you, but those that we serve in the future for our great city. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Citizens' comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Comments about any of the council agenda items are appreciated by the council and may be taken into consideration at this time or during the agenda item. Council is prohibited from acting on or discussing items brought before them at this time. No citizens? Okay. The other ones want to speak at the... Okay. Consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Item number 4, public hearing. Conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on the city-initiated request and act on the ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Corinth, each being a part of the Unified Development Code, to amend the permitted use of a planned development 26 PD 26 on approximately 9.1 acres, with the subject properties being located at 5920 South I-35E, case number ZAPD 24-008, Harley-Davidson PD 26 Amendment. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, our Director of Planning and Development, Melissa Daly, will cover this request and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and good evening. This agenda item is concerning the Harley-Davidson site and specifically to add the tattoo parlor use to the existing PD. This is PD 26. It currently has a C2 base zoning. There's currently a tattoo parlor as well as a barber shop that are inside of the Harley building. Those are actually independent businesses that are leased from Harley with a separate lease for the space for those uses. They have been there for, as I understand, about a year and a half, the existing tattoo parlor, or there was one, and then a new one came in, and that's how this came up. The same use, but a different business came in to utilize that space. So we looked at that previously. It was identified as an accessory use to the Harley-Davidson use. We feel that because it is a separate business, it's under an independent lease with Harley as a lease space, that it makes more sense to add that use to the PD to allow for that use going forward. So if a different business that had the same use came in, they would be able to go in by right. The application is consistent with the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. We've not received any letters of support and have received 4 letters of opposition. Staff does recommend approval as presented. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval unanimously on this item on October 28th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council?
Yeah, I've got a question. If we've had a tattoo parlor there, why do we need to amend the whole PD rather than just continue to allow it as an accessory use?
I've had a little bit of concern as to whether it really qualifies as an accessory use, because it's not Harley's tattoo shop. It's actually a separate business entirely. And they have a lease with the Harley-Davidson ownership. So when the new one came in, the staff now, which is all changed, took a look at that use in terms of how that was interpreted and felt like it made a little more sense to have it as a use in the PD rather than accessory use, simply because it is a separate business.
So one quick follow-up question. So if we amend the PD, that means that tattoo parlors in this case are allowed anywhere on that property, whether inside the Harley building or not?
Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So is there, with this particular PD, not a more conservative way to address the need? Because Harley's not asking for a tattoo parlor anywhere on their property. They just want that tattoo parlor that's been there for quite some time to be able to continue to operate.
We could. Like I said, staff was a little concerned about the interpretation of the being an accessory use. So that's why we recommend the change. Simply because it is a completely separate business under a lease of a tenant space within the Harley building.
Through this vehicle, can we restrict it to the square footage currently used for a tattoo parlor?
Yes.
Could we do
Because
that
it
by
is a
amendment
PD,
tonight?
We could add that to the PD. I mean, that's Patricia could probably, but we could add that to the PD language.
And so just,
that it be internal to the.
we could just make a statement consistent with that tonight. Do you have a visual that we could use to tie that down?
No, because I hadn't thought of that. That's a really good suggestion that I hadn't thought of. But one of the things you could do is make a recommendation, I'm thinking off the top of my head, to the that it be limited to the existing space, and we can determine what that is, and that it be internal to the site without external signage.
Is the barber shop not considered an accessory?
It is allowed by right.
Okay, got it.
Sorry.
So if they ever wanted to move it from the square feet where it is, from over here to here, they would not be allowed to, or they would as long as they stayed within that square footage?
Yeah, if you include that in your motion, we can add that to the PD. It is a PD, so we can add that language, that it be restricted to the existing square footage. We'll look that up. And that it be internal to the building without external signage, if that's kind of what you're saying. Oh, shoot, I think I screwed up.
Are there any other questions, Council?
Nope.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion on this item.
You do the public hearing.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, I'm opening this up for a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? Not? Close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mayor, I would move to approve case number ZAPD 24008D6, amendment to allow tattoo studio use with the additional condition that the PD be amended to restrict that use to the existing square footage and nowhere else on the property, and no exterior signage.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Item number 5, conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on a request by the applicant 2200 Corinth Holding LLC to amend the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Corinth, each being a part of the Unified Development Code from SF2 single family to MXC mixed use commercial on approximately 6.3 acres located at 2200 FM 2181, case number ZMA 24-006, 2200 FM 2181, MXC rezoning. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Melissa Daly will cover this item as well, answer any questions.
Thank you. This is a property located on 2181, fronting that roadway. It is situated directly fronting 2181. It is situated adjacent to some residential to the south. It is zoned SF2. It has commercial across the street that is C1. You see here in kind of the peach color, In addition, this parcel in PD 35 is Zone C1 as part of that PD. In the comprehensive plan, it envisions this site as a mixed-use node. We don't actually have very many of those in the comprehensive plan, and the others are either in our downtown area or on I-35. This is one area that was envisioned as being a mixed-use node, and I think that's primarily because of the fact that this is a large roadway, a 6-lane roadway, so the opportunity to have commercial there in a mixed-use environment makes sense. The MXC code, and we went over this in work session, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have on the MXC zoning. But I wanted to point out the transitional plane that's required when adjacent to one or two single-family or one or two-family residential, and that is that there has to be a 20-foot spacing between the property line and the building line. And additionally, there has to be a 45-degree angle. And that doesn't mean, of course, that's what the building looks like. It just means there can't be building in that area. So that does provide for a pretty significant buffer to the south. And again, there are commercial uses across the street or directly across the street from this property. P&Z held a workshop on this item on September 23rd. To date, we've received no letters of support and 4 letters of opposition. The application is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan. I do want to mention, too, there's been some question about traffic and the roadway. This development would need to comply with the traffic requirements. If it's deemed necessary, they'll need to do a full traffic study. I don't know that that would be deemed necessary or not. I don't think it's going to be an issue of the roadway not supporting the traffic because it is a very wide roadway, but there could be a decel lane, for example, that may need to go in depending on that traffic analysis. Staff does recommend approval at the October 28th regular session. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-1 to recommend approval as presented, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council? Okay. Does the developer want to make a presentation?
Developer here.
No. Did you want to speak to this? Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Paul Bosco, 9137 Cypress Creek in Lantana. I'm not sure. We went to the work session, understood the concerns with the adjacent neighborhood. We would obviously comply or exceed any requirements for lighting was one of the concerns. We would rather have ground lighting as compared to post lighting. That would be our preference, even though probably not required by city ordinance. We could have light poles. Fencing, visual, again, along that property line, that was a concern at the workshop from the residents, and I spoke at there also. We would prefer to have an 8-foot fence. I'm not sure masonry is something that it would be fine from our side being commercial. I'm not sure that's good from the residential side. I think a board-on-board type cedar fence is probably more residential-like, so we would work with them on that. We did a development in Flower Mound right up against an existing homes, and we worked very well with the homeowners association, and it's the first time that the council said it was the first time that they had an HOA actually come in favor of our development once we got done working with them. So it's kind of we feel like we did a good job in staying in touch with the HOA and always working through them and trying to do a little bit more than we were supposed to do. such as landscaping. I think we were required to put in 6 trees, small, like 3-inch trees, and we ended up putting in 22, I think it was. We put in extra bushes along there just for screening, even though it wasn't something that's required. So we feel like we go the extra mile when we're working with residents along there, just like we would want somebody to do with us. And we know that things go a lot smoother with the city if the residents go along with helping with the development. So that's what we plan on doing. That's the way we do our developments. We're a small operation family. So any other questions?
Are there any
Yes, sir.
questions?
Real quick, the development in Flower Mound, is it up? Has it been constructed?
Oh, yeah, we did it in 2019.
Okay. What was the name of that?
It was the Bosco Auto Group.
Bosco Auto Group.
It was an auto dealership, actually, and we fronted it along the fronts of people's homes, not even their backyards, but the front of their homes.
Is that on 407?
Yes. It's since been turned to, it's called the Brokerage now. The name on the building has changed to the Brokerage.
Are there any other questions from council? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a couple people who want to speak to this. Is it Ty Farley?
Did you open public hearing?
Okay. Hold a second. I got to open the public hearing. Greatness. You're the first on, Doc.
Hi, my name is Ty Farley. I live at 2201 High Point Drive. So I'm at the corner of backed up to the Corps of Engineers, what I'm trying to say. All the water runoff for that property that they're talking about developing actually runs down into our neighborhood and then comes through my yard into the creek. That green spot that was on that drawing is all Corps of Engineer. We actually have deer that come up and eat out behind my neighbor's house. I've had them in my yard. I've had all the animals. I got everything from turkeys to everything right there. We've got huge oak trees already on that property that are gorgeous. I can't imagine that property being changed into a commercial building. It should stay SF2. I don't know what planning and zoning is thinking, but that's just because it's prime property, it should be houses. It shouldn't be, it should not be commercial property. A 5-story building on that property is going to look right into my backyard. I don't care what slope it's on. It's going to look into my backyard. They don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. An 8-foot fence is what I have in my backyard, around my yard already. Useless for that kind of structure. They're literally going to be able to see all the way down in everybody's pools, everybody's backyard, all the way down the street. So I highly recommend that this is reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Chris, is it Smith? Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Chris Smith, 2211 High Point. Like Mr. Farley, I would be backing up directly to this property, this development. I think many of my neighbors were at the P&Z, and I'm actually an alternate on P&Z, so I was there for that presentation. And I will say then the same thing I said at that time. My main concerns, light pollution into a residential neighborhood. You're talking about putting, whether it's ground lighting or pole lighting, building lights, security lights. If it's a building that's facing to the back of me, it's going to have security lights back there. It's going to be blowing right into our yards. Privacy, as that property is upslope from our properties, even at a slope of any kind on their building, it's going to be looking, anything over a story is going to be looking into our backyards, maybe over 2 stories, okay? It is light pollution, privacy, security, and noise, and honestly, noise pollution. We live in a very quiet neighborhood. It's one of the reasons that I purchased in that neighborhood was because it's a quiet neighborhood, very relaxed, very with the trees and everything like that. And truthfully, you develop a property back there, I'm likely, like many of my neighbors, to lose trees that are in my yard because you're going to put concrete over their drip line that hang over the fence, which there's no 3-inch tree or 22 3-inch trees on the other side of that fence that's going to make up for a very large existing mature tree that's in my yard or any of my neighbors. Additionally, I would say that the fencing, putting a commercial style fence, even if it's base masonry and topped with wood, if any kind, behind our houses will degrade our backyards tremendously. Talking about degrading our backyards, it's also going to degrade our property values. I don't think that's the direction that the city's trying to take this. And an isolated mixed-use node in the middle of residential, even though I know there's some commercial across the way, it just does not fit for the neighborhood areas around there. Thank you.
Thank you. Gregory Davis, he is against it, but does not want to speak. Marcy Davis is against it and does not want to speak. Warren Pickering, and he's against it and does not want to speak. Virginia Holt. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Sure. My name is Virginia Holt. We've lived at 3500 Buckingham Drive for 20 years. We have an area projecting out directly diagonal from where this property is proposed. And we've seen a 30-foot high bank on our property slide down with mature trees into Veal Springs Branch during rain events. And we've continued to have erosion. That happened back in 2010, but there is still continuous erosion. We're far back from it, so we're not in trouble. I'm going to bring out a visual aid because I'm trying here to talk some sense, some basic physics, and try to spare others the injury, the chronic pain, the concussions, the PTSD, and the expenses you get with survivable wrecks in poorly designed and highly unsafe intersections. If you look at it on a map, that's one thing. That's a bird's eye view. If you look at it from your car, it is death. When I was writing this up, I could hear sirens. We get them regularly. People go around blind curves, 50 miles an hour is the speed limit. People drive usually 65. And you go around and you can literally not see the area that would have people coming and going out of these new lots. I do the chimpanzee rule when I teach my kids. You want to be 1 chimpanzee, 2 chimpanzee, 3 chimpanzee. Well, I was able, driving at 40 miles an hour, which is under the speed limit, at 6 chimpanzees, I could see the intersection. If I was going 50 miles an hour, that would be 3 chimpanzees to hit the brakes. Okay? If I'm going 65, it's going to be 2 chimpanzees, and I'm going to be sitting in the back of somebody's SUV that is pulling out or somebody's lawn service that is pulling out. The road is broad, but it is invisible. In 2014, I was hit by a hydroplaning wrong-way driver, one of multiple wrecks that occurred at the same 3 intersections in 2014. And that was due to a lack of signage, but it was mostly because people going at speed on intersections that they're unfamiliar with would come up to the top of the hill and go, holy crap, and hit their brakes. And that's happened for 9 months. Okay, I don't want that kind of situation happening right near us. So I'm going to just show it to you, and you can see it's a blind curve, like totally, like incredibly blind. This area is blind. Right from here to here, you're going along here, you can't see it. If you're going east, it only goes to Valencia. Okay, this is northward, right up here. If they're looking that way, you see that curve? It's not there. It's around the corner of a curve. It's where the property is. Then I'm going past Corinth Forest. It is still around the curve. Then you go over here. It is still around the curve. You know, this is something you go in about a minute. Around the curve, and then it broadens out. I was unable to really get a good shot of it because you're going around so fast. It's not good. And the two properties are bisected by a creek, which, as I said, floods, and it causes erosion. The intersection of Buckingham Drive and Bridgestone has flooded. The city has done all they can do with large drains, but the lake will rise up on the back of those properties, and it does at Lake Bluff Estates as well. So it's a safety factor for me. It's TxDOT's fault for putting that road where they did with that kind of curve. And there's really nothing we can do about physics. Thank you.
Thank you. Heath, is it Shalley? Shalley? Okay. Please state your name and your number for the records, please.
Heath Shattuck. I live at 2107 Venice Drive. So I have the privilege of serving as HOA president for Valencia, which is right there across the street. Now, I'm going to be honest, while I realize the gentleman said he spoke to the surrounding HOAs, we had no idea. We had no clue as to what was being considered for development there until this lady put a sign on our lamppost, and we said, oh my gosh. So we have, in order to make a left out of our neighborhood on Teasley, there's only one place there, and it is a very blind hill, as she's already stated. So visibility is at a minimum. We had a young man just a few months ago coming over that hill towards 2499. Granted, he was speeding a bit, but so was everybody else coming over that hill. It was slick. He hydroplaned, hit our light post, and if the light post hadn't been there, he would have been straight into the culvert, which is all rocks and concrete. It is already a very dangerous point of ingress and egress out of our neighborhood. It was highlighted on the map that there's already existing commercial, but I want to just specify what that commercial is. It's a small daycare on the corner of Post Oak. There was a group that purchased another parcel. It's going to be a dance studio. Those are both indicative of low traffic. They're going to be very specified times of the day. If this is turned over to blank slate mixed use like we're talking about, we run the risk of 5-story apartment buildings. Maybe it's unlikely, but it's out of your hands once you ring that gavel. Beyond that, the traffic, if you approve this, you're going to proxy out that responsibility to TxDOT to make sure we all remain safe. And I think that goes beyond what you want to do as a council for protecting this community. So I applaud you for trying to bring in additional commercial, bring in revenue, bring in tax base. I just don't think this particular piece, this little slice here, is the place where you want to do that because there's already a dangerous intersection. And to be honest, if any of y'all come out there and sit and just watch the traffic during different times of the day, I come out and sit when we're taking our kids to school and see how people fly over that street. It's already dangerous, and there's already a stoplight at Post Oak. There's not really a good place where you could even add additional traffic controls to be able to suppress that unless you just want to drop the speed limit down to 25 miles an hour on 2181, and nobody's going to go for that. So that's my 2 cents. I got to represent the interests of the 86 homeowners that live there in Valencia.
Thank you. Trevor Downing. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Trevor Downey, 2207 High Point Drive here in Corinth, Texas. Thank you all for allowing me to speak. The proposed rezoning affects my family as my property is located directly behind 2200 FM 2181. I echo many of the concerns that my neighbors have expressed, such as noise and light pollution, traffic congestion, privacy, and property devaluation. In fact, during the planning and zoning meeting conducted on October 28th, many of the commission members on the commission, they expressed their concerns of the proposed plans for this property. It seems that they only approved the recommendation because the property was listed as possibly being rezoned in the city's 2040 comprehensive plan. I argue that it should not have been considered for the mixed-use commercial purpose and encourage you all to ask yourselves the following questions. Given the space of the property, how does it promote a pedestrian-oriented urban form given mixed commercial standards focusing on promoting a walkable urban form of development? How would an urban form development look in the middle of the suburban residential neighborhoods on the FM 2181 corridor? Successful mixed-use districts are characterized by a circulation network in which residents, workers, and visitors may conventionally walk, drive, bike, or ride public transportation to destinations within and outside of the district. How does this property maximize connectivity and access given its size and it's only accessible via the eastbound lanes of FM 2181? With the property only being a little over 6 acres and with the property narrowing towards the east, how can the development provide a significant number of units within the mixed commercial district? This was listed as being critical to success of a mixed commercial development in the comprehensive plan. The mixed commercial standards should support success of existing businesses, allowing for a higher density population to be closer to retail and other businesses, and by creating quality of life and sense of community that affects a workforce that future attracts businesses to community. And I ask, how is this development going to support the other businesses on the FM 21 corridor? Again, given the property's scope, how is a walkable, mixed-use, high-density central city district able to be developed on this property? There also appears to be other properties along the corridor that could be possibly rezoned for mixed commercial use and would be more suitable for such a development, as well as be in line with the 2040 comprehensive plan. I agree the city can benefit from something like this, but this particular property is not suitable for this. And if you allow other areas on the corridor for mixed commercial use, then you are going to run into the fact that, is there enough demand to fill these office spaces and these retail spaces and these residential units? The last thing that the city wants is vacancies along that corridor.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
David White. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
David Whited, 2203 High Point Drive. I too have a serious concern. This backs up right to my house. The water floods into my yard, through my yard into his yard. When it rains there, if it were developed, paved, I don't see it being any better. Several people here have said it better than I possibly can with the blind curve coming around right there at that where that property is. Currently, for westbound 2181, there's not a way to turn left into that property. That's something that would have to be taken care of. In addition to that, the property is basically a big triangle with a good part of it being such a small point of that triangle that it's not really developable. Another, acre or two of that is going to be heavily wooded, backing up to the other property that they showed that's had a for sale sign on it since I've lived there. My concern is the value of my house. If there's somebody looking down in my backyard that wasn't there as a single family when I bought the house back there, I talked to the gentleman that lived there. Nice old guy. Took good care of the place. Hated to see him go. The place does not condone or support mixed-use development. It should stay single-family residential. That's all.
Thank you. Ashley Leibholt. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
My name is Ashley Leibholt. I'm at 1902 Bridgestone Drive. As a resident of Kensington Estates, I'm deeply concerned about the proposed rezoning for the 6-acre single-family lots to multipurpose or commercial, mainly because of the increased flooding risk to our neighborhood. Buckingham Drive already experiences flooding during heavy rains, and introducing anything other than single-family homes to this lot would exacerbate this issue. A parking lot or a similar development would drastically reduce permeable surfaces, leading to increased runoff and putting both land and homes at greater risk of property damage. The Veal Springs branch is already incapable of handling heavy rainfall, which is evidenced by landslide back in 2010 and other issues that it has had. We have firsthand experienced how rezoning can harm our neighborhood. When the church was built on the east side, residents at Brookshire Run began facing yearly property damage during storms with no viable solutions to protect their homes. And now the west side of our neighborhood is at risk of enduring the same devastating consequences. We are asking you to prioritize the safety and stability of our community by rejecting this rezoning request. Our neighborhood cannot withstand any further increase in flooding, and the potential damage to our homes and land is too great to ignore. The proposed mixed-use property is located on a blind curve, making it dangerous to spot high-traffic entrance with speed limit of 50 miles per hour on 2181. In this area, the risk of an accident would increase significantly. It's unlikely that a traffic light would be installed at this location, as developments such as an apartment complex or a drive-through restaurant may not meet the qualifications. And I'm personally opposed to this rezoning of this property, as it would negatively impact my property value. Additionally, I am deeply concerned about the potential for the increased traffic congestion. I don't want our area to mirror the gridlock of Prosper, Plano, or Frisco, where the daily commute becomes a stressful and miserable experience. Such a change would significantly diminish our quality of life. I'm concerned about the inadequate wastewater treatment facilities in our area. The proposed 6-acre property would rely on the malfunctioning sewer lift station at Post Oak, which already overflows and dumps raw sewage during heavy rain events. So who's going to address and repair those issues before a development occurs? And then I strongly oppose the rezoning of this property on 2181, converting it to a single-family use to mixed use or commercial, not only because of the flood risk, but also the increase in traffic dangers and putting our neighborhood at further risk. I'm disheartened by the rezoning that has already taken place along 2181. There is no need for high-density developments or small lots in our community.
Thank you. Is it Autumn? Yeah, please state your name and your address for the records, please.
This is Autumn Wilson, Brian Dixon. We live at 3704 Post Oak Trail, right down the road. I'm going to need probably 30 seconds. I am speaking today very nervously regarding the proposed zoning change at 2200 FM 2181, currently listed as SF2 and proposed to change to mixed-use commercial. Myself, as well as 20-plus other residents, attended the P&Z meeting on October 28th. All of the residents that spoke at the meeting were opposed to the zoning change request. Many of their properties back up to this piece of land, which everybody knows that now. The developer could not provide any information at that time as to what they planned to build. Instead, a slideshow was presented that included visuals of fast food, retail, even 5-story high apartment complexes. The P&Z committee blatantly disregarded resident concerns and moved forward to recommend that the City Council approve the zoning change request. There are several issues I have with that situation. The first being that the P&Z committee very clearly does not consider residents' opinions, concerns, or time valuable. based on their opinions and actions of that meeting. Secondly, changing the zoning of that property does not seem to be in alignment with the Corinth 2040 Envision Plan. On page 47, it says land use and development strategy states that purpose and intent is to maintain character and quality of existing neighborhoods, ensure property value of existing neighborhoods stays stable, and land use types and density are based on existing neighborhood layout and context. Additionally, on page 53, the mapped areas shown on the Envision Plan do not include that 2200 block of 2181. Therefore, I even question, should it be eligible for the mixed-use zoning change? Which my understanding is that was specifically created for the development of Agora in accordance to the 2040 Envision Plan. Regarding the Vision Plan, I would like to ask and get some clarity on what exactly the city is trending towards. Your Envision Plan is pertaining to growth is broken down into 3 scenarios by 2040. The first being multifamily. The first being traditional, the second being optimized A, the third being optimized B. In 2024 alone, the city has already approved to build or has built 1,183 single-family homes, 115 townhomes. I'm not sure about the condos. 1,819 multifamily homes. Continuing at this rate, the trajectory for over the next 16 years would mean 18,928 single-family homes, 1,840 townhomes, and almost 30,000 multifamily homes. That's nearly 50,000 additional dwellings and potentially 100 to 250,000 additional people easily. Your Envision Plan states that Corinth's largest residential base are in the ages of 35 to 54. They make up 44% of the population. 47.7% of the 10,576 work.
Thank you. Oh, you're Brian? Okay. Yeah, just state your name and your address to the records.
You sure? Okay, this is not very fun, actually. So, where was I? 47.7% of the 10,576 workers that live in Corinth commute outside of Corinth to go to work. I am one of those workers that the plan referenced. I have lived in the Lake Cities for nearly 20 years. I have lived in Corinth for the last 12. I have sacrificed countless hours driving up and down I-35 for almost 20 years. And I did that intentionally so that I could live and raise my children in a city that was not overpopulated. There's a large number of residents that have made the same intentional sacrifice that invested in property in Corinth, and they're extremely frustrated by the amount and the rate of growth the city is approving so nonchalantly. Not to mention, on page 39, the Envision Plan talks about the Corinth Climate Resiliency Plan in order to identify, prioritize, and design strategies to address climate impacts on Corinth. It states that these vulnerabilities already include public safety, systems that are overwhelmed, failure of city-owned infrastructure, reduced water supply and quality, degradation of natural resources, increase of negative health impacts, reduction of quality of life, and local culture. The Envision Plan states on page 40 that the Climate Resiliency Plan's goals are to have careful siting of new public buildings, leave priority lands in natural state, ensure robust natural systems. It isn't obvious to me that Corinth shot callers are at all concerned about keeping Corinth green or beautiful. Otherwise, they would be protecting the very few remaining green zones that we have instead of approving apartment complexes and such to be built. Please do not turn Corinth into Frisco, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I don't think anybody has overstated the risk of traffic there. There's already a light there. There's no way you can put in another light there. And obviously, there's been several people speak to the traffic risk. And when you're coming down that blind hill, people are going 60, 65 miles an hour regularly. So I don't know if more police presence or something would help. But the risk on that intersection is not being overstated. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other? Did you put a request? You put a request in? Okay. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name's David Harper. I live at 2301 High Point Drive, Corinth. I can't say anything that they haven't already said, so I won't be redundant. I would say where I probably vary with my neighbors a little bit, I'd like for the council to deny the mixed-use commercial zoning. However, I suggest that the property be zoned and developed as a well-thought-out, high-end, professional office space, just like what you got just directly to the east of this building. Professional, law office, dentist, medical, one-story buildings with very attractive front elevations, low intensity. I know it didn't reach your goal of sales tax generation. I understand all that, but this particular property is just so small, and I can't imagine a 5-story. Anybody here, anybody in this room would want to live near a 5-story parking garage. So I'd ask you to please deny the mixed use, but encourage staff to maybe reevaluate, excuse me, and look at a planned development that's high-end and very attractive. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there anybody else? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I entertain a motion on this item.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to deny.
I'll second.
I've got discussion.
Any further discussion?
Yes, please. So, a few things. First, the MXC zoning that City Council worked on for quite some time, I think is good. And I think it's good for Agora, and I think it's good for the major areas that we had were focused on. Because the city of Corinth, unfortunately, counter to some of the discussion tonight, is in desperate need of economic development growth. And for 2 reasons. The first is that we are competing with cities like Frisco for police officers, right? Those cities will be starting our police officers off at $100,000 a year for a brand new police officer, likely within 5 to 6 years. The city of Corinth cannot afford to compete with that unless the city of Corinth develops. And so, just like you, I've lived here for 20 plus years, and I don't like all of it, but I do see the side of it on the budgetary end of things. And the bottom line is, the citizens of Corinth, including myself, can either agree to 3 times the taxes, or we can bring economic development in to help pay for the burden, because a city does not create anything. We don't create a profit. All we can do is tax. And if the cost of everything is going through the roof and there's no new development coming in, the only way that the city of Corinth is going to be able to afford police officers 10 years from now is to have new development, or for our taxes to go up. Like, those are kind of the options. The reason I chose to deny this evening is for 2 reasons. The first is I had a discussion with staff with the complexities that something like this would happen. So we have no vision, even though a vision was requested, of what could possibly happen with this property, and there is nothing. So essentially, from my perspective, we are stuck with either approving something and believing a developer that they're going to develop and keep things the way that they say that they're going to, or they're going to find a way to get as much height out of this thing that they possibly can, for instance. But there's nothing that I can personally do. If I'm meeting with 10 people and they're saying, hey, what about this, what about this, what about this? There's nothing. There's nothing that I have to communicate with them. I don't have pictures. I don't have any sort of vision that was described of what this thing possibly could look like. So I would encourage us to take a look at the MXC on this property and decide, is this particular property good for this type of zoning? And that'll be a future discussion. The second thing is, and this is not so much for staff or my fellow council members, this is the first time that we have had a full council chamber and not a single email to me. Not a one. I have not received an email. I have not received a phone call. I had no idea about any of this until this meeting this evening, and I don't like approving things unless I've made it through these discussions. And so I would encourage every single one of you, in fact, for both zoning things tonight, I've received a total of 2 email communications, period. And so it's very important from the position of somebody that may have an issue with something that at a council meeting is probably the worst time to bring something up for the first time to a member of council that has never heard one of these concerns before. So I would encourage you, I don't bite. In fact, I'm likely to buy you coffee. I've done that probably 400 times in my 9 years that I've been on council. But this particular development for me is totally different than the one that we're going to be talking about next, because we have a vision. We've got some sort of an idea of what's going to happen. We know what the opportunity costs are. We know what the plan might be. So that's all I have to say.
I'd like to add something, Mayor. I also would like to make a comment that I don't necessarily know if single family will go in that spot. When that was zoned single family, Swisher was a 2-lane road. It's now a 6-lane thoroughfare. But what I do think that it should be retail, but I think that it should be zoned with a much more narrow scope maybe, or changed at least when a development application has been made, and then we know what's going to go in there. Instead of, I hesitate to approve this rezoning, when so much is allowed by right, like echoing what Scott said. That's my fear with just zoning it without any type of development even in mind. We don't know there's not even a plan for anything to go in there right now, and changing it to MXC that has such a broad development allowed by right, I don't think I don't think that takes into consideration the neighboring communities, and I like to save trees, but that is, I worry about the people that live directly behind it that are impacted, that have made the biggest investment of their life, and I would hate to allow something just by right. So that's my reasons for not being in support of this, but I do think a very thoughtful, reasonable retail strip center with medical, or like I talked to one of the citizens who said maybe a med spa, and I think that would be a perfect location for that. But until we get a development application, till we know that what may go in there, I am hesitant to approve something that allows so much by right.
Any other comments by council? Not, cast your vote.
To deny, right?
Okay. The motion passes. Been denied. Item number 6, conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on the request by the applicant, Michael Engel, to amend the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the City of Corinth, each being a part of the Unified Development Code, to rezone approximately 5.7 acres from planned development 36 PD 36 to SF2 single-family residential, with the subject property being generally located west of Scenic Drive, east of Oak Bluff Drive, and south of FM 2181. Case number ZMA 24-007 PD 36 to SF2. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Melissa Daly will cover this item as well and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. This is a smaller piece at the southeast portion of PD 36 that is Canyon Lake Ranch. It's a 5.6 acre piece that the applicant is requesting to rezone to SF2. It would be essentially pulled out of the PD 36. You can see here it's bounded on the north by PD 72, which is enclave, on the east by another SF2 property, on the west, of course, by the PD 36 that is currently in, and then Hickory Creek to the south. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which calls for mixed residential. You can see the location. Whoops. Sorry about that. You see the location here on the southeast portion of that parcel that is PD 36. We've received no letters of support or opposition on this particular case. Staff does recommend approval of the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote unanimously to approve the application at their October 28th meeting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up for a public hearing. And Gregory Davis, they do not wish to speak, but they're against this project. Marcy Davis does not want to speak, but is against the project. Warren K. Pickering. Is he here? Okay. He said he wanted, he does not, he's against the project. Okay. That's all I have there. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak to this issue? If not, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve case number ZMA 24-0007 as presented and direct staff to prepare an ordinance for adoption at a future date.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Cast your vote. All right, it's unanimous. Okay. Item number 7. Passes. Item number 7, conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on request by the applicant, Long Lake Development, LLC, to amend the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Corinth, each being a part of the Unified Development Code, to rezone approximately 108 acres from Planned Development 36, PD 36, and C-2 commercial to a planned development with a base zoning district of MXC, mixed-use commercial, and SF2, single-family residential, with the subject properties being generally located south of FM 2181, west of Park Ridge Drive, east of Serendipity Hills Trail, case number ZAPD 24-007, Canyon Lake Ranch Plan Development. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Melissa will cover this item as well.
Thank you. So this is the Canyon Lake Ranch development. It's approximately a 104-acre site. We have been working with the developer for a number of months now on this application. It's currently zoned PD 36 with a base zoning of SF3 and C2. There's an existing home and a lake on the property. It's bordered by the enclave, upcoming enclave development to the east, the Lake Louisville on the south, several neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods to the west, and then several commercial properties to the north, as well as the Acme Brick Quarry. This is the comprehensive plan land use map, which calls for this area to be mixed residential and quarter commercial, fronting 2181. And as we talked about Enclave, we did talk about both Enclave and Canyon Lake Ranch together being that mixed residential that the two developments would provide a whole array of residential uses, and so those are consistent with the mixed residential land use plan, or what the land use plan calls for. Mixed residential land use in the comprehensive plan calls for capitalizing on and preserving natural features. This is a great opportunity to do that, particularly in this development, with the natural features in the lake, a range of housing including single-family, townhomes, and apartments, and you'll see that in this development. Walkable trails, open space, and connections, and connected streets. And this is the page referencing that land use you see on the right in the comprehensive plan. It calls for traditional neighborhood development, which is pedestrian-oriented, a mix of residential types, neighborhood, commercial, and community facilities within walking distance. So the residents here will be able to walk to the various commercial uses and throughout the community. Shared community spaces, really focusing on built around people first and cars secondarily, and creating a community and not just a collection of houses. And that's something we've worked really hard with the developer on accomplishing. The master thoroughfare plan calls for a new collector street. Don't worry about the alignment that it's showing, which is kind of interesting, but it's really just an illustration of showing connectivity there between Park Ridge and 1181. 6 to 10 foot trails throughout the development. You'll see that in traffic calming measures. This is the layout of the development. This is Enclave on the right-hand side. The development includes a commercial piece on the north end, residential, larger lot residential on the west, and a mix of residential types to include apartment homes, townhomes, and single family throughout this area. One of the things that's really, I think, unique for this development is the trail system and the boardwalk that's being proposed along the lake. And the developer is here. I'll let him go into that a little more, but you can see here in the black lines showing that connectivity with the boardwalk and the trail system. And it doesn't really show on here, but the trail system does connect. Trails and sidewalks connect to Enclave as well, so this will all be an interconnected community, particularly east of the lake. Subdistrict A, so we have these are divided out into A, B, and C. So Subdistrict A has a base zoning of MXC, allowing for a mix of uses. Primarily commercial uses are anticipated here, but could incorporate some residential, in particular on the northeast corner piece, which is large enough to potentially contemplate some residential potentially, or it could be all residential. We're proposing that the MXC mix of use requirement would not apply, but that non-residential uses would be required at the ground level in this area. So you would have the commercial uses at the ground level for all buildings in Subdistrict A. And that buildings within 20 foot of 1 or 2 story homes would not exceed 3 stories. That really was kind of looking at particularly these areas that, particularly here, this area that aligns with the residential and Enclave, that you would have a nice transition there that wouldn't be more than 3 stories and would have a 20-foot separation. And the parking ratio for multifamily would be 1.5 stalls per unit. That's for multifamily only. Single family would have the typical minimum 2-car parking. Subdistrict B would have a mix of single-family homes, townhomes, multifamily, and condominiums. Building, again, that same requirement, buildings within 20 foot of 1 or 2 story homes would not exceed 3 stories. And that really is looking at particularly this area right here, which is adjacent to some single-family homes. It's really the only place that would likely apply. The MXC architectural standards would not apply to single-family. We included architectural standards here for that development. The MXC standards are really geared towards commercial development, so they're not very applicable, so we just added in some architectural standards. Garage doors fronting the street would be carriage style with windows and hardware, and that probably sounds familiar because we had that same requirement with the Enclave development. Minimum of 2 garage doors, or excuse me, maximum of 2 garage doors would front the street. Driveway, these are similar to what was in Enclave. The driveway width maximum would be 16 foot up to the inside edge of the sidewalk, and that's to minimize the amount of driveway width along the walkway so that you can maximize the walkability in the community and also allow for on-street parking, particularly for some of those more narrow lots. And then importantly, front porches would be required for a minimum of 2/3 of the units, at least 7 foot in depth and 70 square feet. And that allows for a usable porch that you can actually put chairs on, for example. Townhome garages would be set to the rear, and again, 1.5 parking stalls per unit for multifamily. Again, that's multifamily only. The landscaping requirements, this is concerning landscaping against the building. That's what we're talking about in this section. We added some language to give some flexibility on that to allow for the residential that may have very minimal or no setback, where landscaping against the building may not fit. And so you can see here a tiered approach. For landscaping, 0 to 3 feet, no landscaping would be required. 3 to 10 feet, you have a minimum of 6 shrubs per ground floor unit. And then 10 to 20 feet would be a minimum of 8 shrubs and 1 ornamental tree per ground floor unit. The tree preservation regulations would require only along the lake. So 50% minimum of healthy protected tree caliber inches within the common open space satisfies the tree preservation and mitigation requirements, and that's that common open space is along Long Lake. However, we did add in there that the healthy protected trees would be defined as any tree species of 6 caliber inches or more. In the MXC base zoning, that's 20 caliber inches, so we increased that preservation level to 6 inches. The park and trail dedication in Subdistrict B would be approximately 16 acres of common open space. That's the area you see in green, with a boardwalk to be provided along Long Lake and connecting trails, a minimum of 8 foot wide. And here you see in the black, those are those trails that we discussed earlier. Subdistrict C has a base zoning of SF2, which has a minimum of half-acre single-family lots. However, all are close to an acre. Most are over an acre. There's only a few that are just under an acre, but because some of them are kind of a little bit different shape, some of them are just slightly under an acre. But this concept plan would be part of the PD. So this plan would prevail in terms of the layout. So here you see the differences between the SF2 base zoning and what is in this particular PD. So minimum lot area would actually be greater. 14,000 square foot is the minimum for SF2. This would have 21,780 square feet. A minimum lot width is 100 for SF2. This would have a minimum of 80, and that's because some of the lots are kind of interesting shapes. So some may be a little bit more narrow at the front side. 110 is the minimum depth, and it would be 90 would be the minimum in the PD. And the tree preservation for Subdistrict C, mitigation would be required only for removal of protected trees located outside of the building footprints, utility easements and driveways, and caliper inch replacement at a 1-to-1 rate for caliper inches removed. Protected trees within 25 foot of Serendipity neighborhood property line along here. Anything within 25 foot, any of those trees would be protected trees. The developer's proposed fencing and gating around Subdistrict C. The comprehensive plan does promote connectivity throughout. Mixed-use node section talks about sustainable priority being connection to regional trails and parks and connected residential uses. So gating or fencing off the western half of the development would limit access to the Elm Fork Trail system. It does affect the social network in neighborhoods, can affect wildlife, and of course the connection of streets, sidewalks, and trail systems. This is the Elm Fort map, just to give you a look at kind of where that is along that trail. And this is a map of the greater trail system. Here's the location of this site. If the development is not gated, staff recommends providing a trail along the north side of Oak Bluff Drive that's a minimum of 6 foot wide, and a trail connection within the development boundaries from the common open space boardwalk trail up here to the Oak Bluff trailhead. If it is gated, staff recommends the creation of an alternative trailhead to be designed and located at the southern end of Subdistrict B, which is probably this location that makes the most sense. Additionally, we had discussed an option to provide pedestrian openings at either end of Oak Bluff and its Street B cul-de-sac. So those are various options. As of today, we have received 3 letters of support and 5 letters of opposition, with 2 of those being from the same property. The application is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan, with the exception of the gating of Subdistrict C. The Planning Zoning Commission recommended approval subject to the following conditions: adding a provision to the PD development standards indicating that no streets will be fenced or gated, providing a trail along the north side of Oak Bluff Drive that's a minimum of 6 feet wide, and providing a trail connection within the development boundaries from the common open space or boardwalk trail to the Oak Bluff Drive trailhead. Staff recommends approval, is deferring to City Council regarding the gating of Subdistrict C. If it's not gated, staff recommends the conditions stipulated by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if it is gated, staff recommends the creation of the alternative trailhead that we just talked about here at the end of the southern end of Subdistrict B. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council? Okay. Does the developer want to speak?
I'm Kevin Weir with Spires Engineering, 765 Custer Road in Plano. Here representing Michael on the zoning case. Happy to be here. Thank you, Melissa, for the presentation. Her presentation covered a large majority of the items. We produced a small presentation just to highlight a couple things, if staff can pull it up. So again, here, everybody knows the site. We can go to the next slide. There we go. So goals of our project, align with the city's goals. We're trying to provide a mix of residential uses, low density, a little bit higher density multifamily, townhomes, casitas, kind of the wide variety of mixed residential. We're trying to integrate as much commercial opportunity as possible along 2181 where it's appropriate, with the potential for vertically integrated mix of uses. If it's could be retail on the bottom floor, commercial on the bottom floor, maybe residential above, if the market deems that. We're providing a central community open space with a 10-acre lake that's connected with a boardwalk system, trails. And then on the residential piece to the west, we're really trying to leverage the topography, the unique views to have great views of the lake and provide really creative opportunities for builders when they come in and build a home. We're not looking for track houses or just anything you see down the street. This is going to be a unique building, unique builders, unique product. Again, Subdistrict A is our commercial zone. Subdistrict B is going to be our residential, which is a wide variety of residential, multifamily casitas, mostly 3- and 4-story multifamily, detached single family, attached single family. And then Subdistrict C is our low-density gated single family. Do we have that video? I'm not sure what the video is. We do have to help with the vision, we do have a quick marketing video for the overall area. Let's see, hopefully this will play right. There should be sound. Should have great music. That's going to be the selling point, the music. This is coming up from the lake going east into the commercial zone. And this is coming up into Subdistrict B, which is the townhomes and detached single-family zone. And this would be the acreage side of Subdistrict C. And then coming up from Lake Louisville to the south. And then the main entrance off of 2180. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of the vision. This is what Michael and I have been working on, mostly Michael. I'm just a small part of it. And then, so if we go back to the slideshow, that would be great. So connectivity, obviously, is something that's important to our development. We are providing trails and boardwalk connectivity through the central open space. We'll also be having trails or sidewalks along Teasley and 2181, trying to get people into the development. We really are hoping to have, if people are coming destination to get to trails coming through the commercial zone, because there's going to be on-street parking, there's going to be potentially a trailhead if council votes that direction. We're really trying to push people through the Central Park down to the trails that are down at Lake Louisville. The trails down at Lake Louisville are not very well developed. They're pretty much non-existent. We don't have a lot of control over that, but we are working, and Michael's been working with the Corps about potentially adding some sort of manicured trails through this kind of dead zone that's between our development and the existing trail system to the south. And then, as Melissa noted, we are building this collector road that would connect 2181 over to Park Ridge. And then regarding Subdistrict C, I just want to point out a couple things. The existing PD and concept plan for PD, it is half-acre lots. There are currently 55 lots that are proposed, shown on the existing PD and the existing preliminary plat. It's also currently approved to be a gated community. That's the way it's currently platted right now. It's been gated since they built the first, 13 lots, however many lots are there right now. And so our zoning case, we're requesting a reduction in lots, going down to 33 lots. The majority of them are an acre. I think the smallest is 3/4 of an acre, but I think there's only maybe 4 that are less than an acre in that development. And then we are intending to do private city standard built streets that are in a gated neighborhood and with the expected median home value between $2 and $3 million. And so our request is to approve the PD as presented with the ability to gate the product in Subdistrict C. And so Michael and I are here with any questions.
Are there any questions from council?
I do have one question. Michael, when we spoke last week at the workshop, you had talked about maybe doing some parking at where the amenity center is. Yes. If you were going to put a trail down to connect to the Elm Fork Trail, but I didn't see it in this rendering. Just so the public would have a place to park, because they'll be able to access Long Lake with their kayaks.
Yes. See if I can find. Okay, so right here. Yeah. So sorry, Michael Engel, 3971 Summer Ridge Drive, Corinth, Texas. Yes. So we would be replacing the amenity center location with a parking lot area that would.
It's like right under that pink trail connection.
Okay, yeah, here we go.
Right?
Yeah, so there's an option to put it right in here. There's also a potential option to put it here. I think we've got room to put a bigger, parking lot here for all of that. And then you can, connect to the boardwalk, connect down to these trails. But we really feel like, as Kevin had mentioned, we're going to have a massive parking lot with lights of lighting and security and all of that. And if this is a true destination location to, for pedestrians who want to come and access, retail and walk, then you jump on the boardwalk, head south, connect to one of these natural trails, and then connect to these trails down here at the south side. So, and I've worked with Corps of Engineers for the last 4 months, met them out there on site, showed them the existing conditions of the trails and how we're looking to improve them, trying to figure out what type of authorization and utilization of equipment or hand manicuring we can utilize to actually open up all those trails. And so we hope to present something soon. I think there's also some grants that the city's helping us look to procure. So the intent is there that in the future we will have access to actually walk the trails along the lake. So I think the only other thing I would add is before going vertical with all this, we are going to fix the lift station issues that are down off Post Oak and Swisher. And so that'll actually have to run all the way up the north side of our property and down and connect in with force mains and lift stations here. So we've spent a lot of time, done a lot of due diligence to try and please as many people as possible and still cover the millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure we've got to put in order to get this thing out of the ground. And so I feel like we've presented the best possible plan that capitalizes truly every type of living for every type of residence. And we're looking to bring in some really nice retail as well. And all of that is already all teed up. And so this isn't going to be a development where you're going to get a bunch of apartments and you're not going to get any retail and you're going to have, congestion for 10 years. Our plan is to execute this thing simultaneously so that we truly create, a nice opportunity for a destination for Corinth residents to enjoy as quickly as possible. So, any questions?
So did you move the amenity center? Are you still going to have one if you're going to make that parking?
So we've got a couple of options. So we can relocate the amenity center to create the parking lot for the trailhead connections, yes.
And you're going to have public parking at the north piece too,
Yes.
where the commercial is?
And they can also launch like a canoe or that down on Lake Louisville there?
Yeah, so that is an option. We do have an X lot that is not buildable, that is enough real estate that we could, if we could get the blessing from Corps of Engineers to install a canoe and kayak launch ramp, we'd be happy to do that. We did that as part of the Lake Louisville. So the city of Louisville actually installed a canoe and kayak launch ramp down off of Hebron, and it gets used all the time. I think people love it. It's a great product, so we would absolutely entertain creating something like that for the citizens of Corinth as well.
Any other question?
I've got a quick question. The pedestrian path through your gated area is still a hard no, I'm guessing. Yeah. So the easement that you said that you would be willing to put in at that corner where the gated part is, you said you had a 1.2 acre lot. You would be happy to put in a 20-foot easement. We're still good with that.
Yeah.
To get down, to get.
Let me see. So, sorry, it's a little slow here. We would consider putting in a path from here straight due south for connectivity if that's what the residents would want. I've spoke to a few of them. I don't think that that's their intent. I think what would happen is it would start off as an accessible trail by foot, but eventually potentially become a destination where people are driving there and, parking along the street and taking their dogs or taking fishing poles early mornings, late nights. So
but
we would build it if that's what, the city was.
Or at least provide an easement, maybe not necessarily build it
Sure.
up front. And I'm trying my best. I've only had 2 conversations. And both conversations indicated access to the trail from that neighborhood would be nice because otherwise they've got to walk all the way up to the street and all the way back through commercial.
Well,
if they can't get through the gated
lake trails, no, you could go south or north. But yes, with the gate there, you would have to go all the way north or all the way south to connect over to the retail.
Right, but to get to the trails south. So currently they walk around the gate to be able to walk in.
Currently
the woods.
they walk on private.
And so if you gate it, there's no access to the woods except for some.
There is just two lots west of the property.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Part of Pinnell, there's a peninsula or a piece of the creek that goes up in Pinnell Point that I don't know if it has pedestrian access now, but it's an X lot that is connected to those trails. I don't know if they have pedestrians that can actually get to it. What they currently do. If we pull up the Elm 4, if we could pull up that part of the presentation, you can see that.
But I mean, just for clarity, currently they trespass to get to the lake.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want, we can show it. It's yours. It's your.
Yeah, I just don't know if I can. They've got it back there.
Oh, they've got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There. That one right there. That one right there. Uh-oh. Yeah. I mean, at least it shows a visual. There it is. So that's this. That's where I'm talking about right there. You know, see that?
Yes.
That's what I was referencing.
Okay.
So
All right.
I don't know.
Thank you.
And that's, 2 lots over from our property.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up for public hearing. We have Gregory Davis. He does not want to speak, but he's against the project. Marcy Davis does not want to speak, but they're against the project. Bill Lee. Please state your name and your address for the records, please. You have 3 minutes.
My name's Bill Leak. I live in Grapevine, Texas, but if this is all approved, I'll be building my home in Canyon Lake Ranch. I already talked to my wife and have the approval for that. I'm here to I've got to wait 2 years, but as soon as I get my daughter out of Carroll ISD. I'm a luxury builder. I've been building over 20 years. My company is Revelation Custom Homes. We build high-end communities. We've done large projects in South Lake, West Lake, Carillon, and South Lake, where I was a premier upper-end builder there. Ran into Michael many months ago. He shared with me the vision, and immediately it didn't take me more than about a minute and a half after driving around in his four-wheeler, looking at the lakes and the opportunity to say, man, I want in on this. I think they really wanted me to speak mostly on the gated, so I'll just kind of go through that quickly. As far as gating, entryway, it gives it more of a luxury development finish in Corinth. And as a builder committed to designing high-end homes in premier locations, we believe that gating the community aligns with the expectations of builders that are purchasing $2 to $3, $4 million homes. The expectations of our target market enhances the city's appeal as well for luxury living. Within the luxury home market, potential buyers often see a gated community as essential. It offers exclusivity, privacy, and security, and that's a very, very important factor in those price points. It is perceived as safe and prestigious place to call home as well. From a financial perspective, positive for property tax values and tax revenues, as we've discussed on a lot of these areas. Corinth stands to benefit from an increased property tax base that bolsters the city's economic growth, which we've heard here quite a bit. Gated communities attract residents who are prepared to make long-term investments in their homes and neighborhoods, fostering a stable and prosperous local economy. In our experience, developing high-end communities appeals to families and individuals alike. Property values will go up, tax values go up, and then we would signal the city's commitment to both safety and quality of life for its residents. Just in my past, we feel that having a gated community just gets you up to a different level is what we're dealing with there. It's a little bit different than from across the lake. We're also preferred builder. We'll be building townhomes, casitas, and villas, and I call it Texlectic Hill Country style. I lived in Austin and built there for years. If you were to drop me off there and tell me I was in Austin, Texas, looking at Lake Travis, I'd believe you. The topography, the trees, so therein lies brings in what we're doing. A lot of Austin stone, standing seam metal. These homes are going to be over the top and very, very cool. So that's what I've got to say. Thank you for your time very much. Really excited about the project.
Linda Norman. Please state your name and your address to the records, please.
My name is Linda Norman. I live at 3013 Enchanted Oaks in Corinth. I've been here for over 20 years, and have seen the city try and grow with economic development, not do well at planning early on in stages. And so I appreciate the fact that you're trying to find ways to generate revenue. The marketing video that the builder or the developer showed was great. And it also said in there, there's a combination of a perfect combination of natural beauty and convenient location. Number one, it will be a beautiful natural view for these luxury homes that will be gating off those areas. They also mentioned there's a massive parking lot. How is that natural beauty? We're taking away one of the last few areas that we have wonderful opportunities to do something with other than build more multifamily. We need more apartments like we need more mosquitoes. It is out of control. And the people who were complaining about traffic, I am so surprised that they did not stay for this, because the exact same problem they are complaining about half a mile to the west is going to occur now half a mile to the east. And so while I encourage development, it is not realistic to expect that 100 acres is going to sit in its native state, which would be wonderful. I'd love it. But we need to find a way to be strategic about it and utilize that beautiful area. And I think the plan in its shape is partially there. But the multifamily aspect and the idea of bringing in more family with luxury residential on one side that wants to be gated off from all of this commercial development that is supposedly going to be drawing people in there doesn't make sense. And so I don't feel like this is the ideal development that is going to bring Corinth what they're really looking for. And I would encourage you to not only pause, I'm not saying necessarily deny, but encourage, hold your ground. If you don't want it gated, or if you don't want it gated, don't go forward yet. If you don't want multifamily or 4-story multifamily, don't go forward yet. And please just rethink the multifamily strategy. It is out of control right now. So that's it.
Thank you. Bruce French. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
My name is Bruce French. I'm 6201 West Plano Parkway in Plano. I'm with Tri-Point Homes, mayor, council members. I'm here. We have now closed on the Culbertson tract. That's the enclave at the Canyon Ranch, immediately east of Michael's property. We've been working with Michael for over a year on jointly planning our developments. I think we've really come up with a great plan for the combined properties. I have developed other gated communities in other municipalities. Most recently was in Arlington about 7 years ago, Park Highlands. In my experience, the gated communities sell faster, and they also are selling at much higher prices than the neighborhood. It just gives Corinth an option that I don't know if it's very abundant in this city right now, but I think, my personal opinion, there's a great need for that product, especially on this site with the topography and the views. And again, I think it's a very well laid out plan, and I would encourage you to vote for it with the gated community aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny Powell. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Kenny Powell. This is a little weird for me because I'm a developer, so I'm usually on the other side of the fence, right? So this is a little different for me. I mean, you guys have a decision to make as far as the development as a whole is concerned. But I think the reason why I'm here is I have a very personal, this is personal to me, especially the trails where, I think, it's great to have trails, but I think people need to understand what the impact is. And so I'm at 2502 Oak Bluff Drive. I'm directly adjacent to Michael's development. If the trails are there, the trailhead on the west side of Oak Bluff where, there was some suggestion that be, that's actually going to be about 8 feet from my bedroom and my bathroom. And so I want to just, if I can, step away from the day for a minute and kind of show you how far that is. So if you guys want to look out of your bedroom or your bathroom see somebody walking down the trail at all hours of the night or in the morning, this is what I'm going to encounter. And so I think that it's not just important to me. I have one of my neighbors here as well. His house is right next to mine. But his house is actually probably 40 or 50 feet from where the trail would actually be. And so where my house is only about 8 feet, the wall is where, the trail would actually be on that west side if you guys want to allow that. I think that there's plenty of opportunity. I think Michael showed where the trail could be on a more public area, not next to somebody's home. And so I think it's important that, like I said, I'm usually on the other side. And I'm usually trying to allay fears from residents as well as council members as far as the impact that's going to have on residents. So I appreciate, you guys have a decision to make on the development itself, and you guys are going to make that. But that trailhead on the west is not a good thing. And if, people parking there or walking next to people's homes is not what you would want, we wouldn't want that either. So that's a public road as well. So that there's nothing to keep people from parking there and walking to the trail at all hours of the night. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak? Please state your name and your address for the record.
John Racanelli, 3905 Serendipity Hills Court, which is at the very bottom next to the subdivision where you were discussing putting access to the Elm Fork Trail, which would be right through my backyard. Number one, that's not going to work because that's the floodplain. And when I moved in, there was water in that area from the actual lake itself. It isn't a drain off. The lake actually comes up that high. And not only would it be behind my property, but you're going to put it in a place where it's going to flood the majority of the time. That happens probably once every 2 or 3 years. And my concern is if you put a gated community in our neighborhood, would people be able to drive in and out of the gate in our neighborhood, or is that going to be locked off there and just one entrance on 2181? Because we live in a community where there's one entrance on one side and one exit on the other, and there's hardly any traffic. But if you have a gated community where people can come up Serendipity Hills Trail and keep going into their subdivision, they are going to use the light at Post Oak because you cannot make a left turn out of Serendipity Hills Trail because of the traffic, and it's a blind area now. And so it's going to increase the traffic in our neighborhood significantly. If you put an access to that trailhead in our neighborhood, people go down there to dove hunt, and if there's 3 trucks parked in our neighborhood, it pretty much blocks off the neighborhood. These streets are not wide enough to have people drive down and go through trails. There is no on-street parking in our neighborhood because they are very narrow streets. I purposely moved to Corinth because it was green. I've lived in areas, and I keep moving further and further north because they keep turning into cement. I've lived in Carrollton, Plano, Flower Mound, and moved here because they would all turn cement. And honestly, the buildup and the businesses never drop my taxes, so I don't see any concern with that. They're going to keep going up. I just would like to see things stay green. I have no problems with single-family homes, but the density, that area just cannot handle the density. People aren't even living in the apartments yet, and it's already crowded. And I don't know why we keep looking at the Elm Fork Trail, because that is a non-existent trail. When I moved here 8 years ago, it used to be a trail, and as it started to deteriorate, I talked to the Corps of Engineers, and they said that is not a trail that they take care of. It used to be a horse trail, and so it was always open because horses were on it. The horses are no longer there. It's not a trail. It's absolutely not there at all anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I filled this out. Just didn't know who I needed to hand it into to be able to speak tonight.
Okay, Nick, is it Jamie?
Nick Gemelli,
3903 Serendipity Hills Court. John's neighbor, and Kenny, as he's building his house, to be neighbor. Look, I like what Michael's doing. He's had a vision. Something needs to happen eventually, right? It's been a long time. But it's the most prestigious land we have in Corinth. So I've got 2 pages that really mean something. I was going to send you my presentation, but again, I didn't even know who to drop the completed form off to. But, we're aligning with the core visions and values of the City of Corinth and the Planning and Zoning Committee. We need to find a way to start building more equity, more tax dollars outside of apartments. I've heard this common theme coming over and over again. Again, I like what he's doing. He's trying to do the right thing. However, I don't agree with it all. As I bought and moved into my home a little over a year ago, the backyard of my green belt and the deer that were running up to the back of my fence just commenced because there were bobcats and chainsaws and trees being knocked down. And that's that 1.2 acre slice of lot that goes into the Corps of Engineer. I'm right behind there. So being here for a little over a year, Swisher, 2181, the traffic is almost doubled. Right now you got Lake Sound Apartments. There's 271 units being built right now, and they're starting to lease that. With that 271 units, there's 63 one-bedrooms, 106 two-bedrooms, and 102 three-bedrooms. Right across the street, you have this place called Arden. They finally put up the sign, so I was able to research that last night, and that's 296 units. 71 bedrooms, 116 two-bedrooms, 110 three-bedrooms. Long Lake has already been approved for 243 zero-lot line homes on the east side. Get that. I'm against the multifamily, which is, I'm hearing now, 4-story. I thought it was 3-story. I was told it was going to be 300 units. I don't know what it's going to be anymore. But just doing some simple math between 1 mile stretch on 2181, a 1 mile stretch between Serendipity Hills and the police department or the Lake Sound and Arden, we're looking at 1,152 new front doors, as I call them. With that, that's 867 approved apartments, 75% of the number of new front doors. Now, I don't know about you, but I think apartment living is temporary. It's not definitely long-term, and it's not serving the taxpayers who pay the bulk of the bills and the property taxes. I've built 5 homes in Denton County. My wife less than that over 34 years. I'm paying more property taxes in Corinth right now than I've ever paid, and she's the one who kicked me out right now. But enough is enough.
Thank you.
What does all that mean at the end of the day in terms of traffic and cars?
Sir, at 3 minutes. 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
You're looking at putting almost 2,300 new vehicles on Swisher within a mile. Somebody needs to understand. It's not what we signed up for.
All right. Is there any other questions from council?
I didn't sign another sheet. You said it was open comment, correct?
Yeah, go ahead.
Adam Wilson, nice to see you guys again. I disagree with making a trailhead at the end of Post Oak or Bluffs. I live in that community. It's windy, it's hilly. I've almost been hit multiple times by residents that live there that are familiar with the street. Kids are constantly up and down on scooters. It's just a really bad idea to make a trailhead there where there's going to be traffic coming through there. Terrible idea. So that said, you guys have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay. State your name and your address for the records.
My name is Jean Martinek, and I live at where do I live? 3401 Serendipity Hills Trail. Oh, sorry, I just went blank there. And I'd just like to state a couple of things. I spoke at the first meeting, and I had asked that the property behind my home, which is now currently zoned commercial, be switched to residential. It is on the west side of the lake. All the properties on the west side of the lake is all commercial except for the property behind my home and the one home next to me, which is going to very adversely affect the property value of my home. The other item you stated earlier to the people in the triangle part that you were concerned about the value of their homes being devalued by this property. That's what's going to happen to my property, but I've not heard any concern from anyone regarding that, which definitely affects me. I fully agree with the comment about the gated community. If they can exit via serendipity, that's kind of like saying, oh, you're good enough to use as a pass-through, but you're not good enough to share our property, or we don't want you as a neighbor. That's all I really have to say. And I would like to very seriously have you consider rezoning the property behind my home as not commercial but residential, to be consistent with that side of the street, or the lake, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. This time, is there anybody else? Not, I'm going to close the public hearing. I entertain a motion on this item.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve case number ZAP D24-0007, Canyon Lake Ranch Plan Development as presented, which means no trail, and direct staff to prepare an ordinance for adoption at a future meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Can we, real quick, Mayor, I think we want to make sure we understand.
Within the PD in front of you, it shows Area C to be gated. So I just want to make sure you knew that. And just as a clarification too, within the PD in your packet, it does show the trailhead, adding a trailhead in area subdistrict B, as I talked about in the presentation. So that would be similarly designed to the one in subdistrict C with some added parking. So we didn't really envision a parking lot, but rather trailhead parking at that end. There would be parking on the north end. But anyway, I just want to make sure you knew that in the existing PD, it does show subdistrict C is gated.
Yes.
Okay. You got a motion in a second? Okay. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, council comment and future agenda items. The purpose of this section is to allow each council member the opportunity to provide general updates and or comments to fellow council members, the public, and or staff on any issues or future events. Also, in accordance with section 30.085 of the Code of Ordinances, at this time, any council member may direct that an item be added as a business item to any future agenda. Mr. Burke.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Garber.
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Rayo.
Nothing.
Mrs. Henderson.
Nothing, sir.
Mrs. Piggin.
I have nothing.
Mr. Campbell.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Okay. Now we're going to executive session and cover sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.087. Going at 8:11.